Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining me at today's webinar. By way of introduction, I'm Anne Livingston, and I'm going to be the chair and moderator for today's webinar. Today's webinar is on international perspectives on innovation in aged and dementia care. Our webinar today is facilitated by Global Community Resourcing for the Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative. If you've joined us in previous webinars, you'd know that these webinars are designed from feedback and requests that we receive through the collaborative, and our collaborative's focus is bringing together national, local and international perspectives in research and development, as well as the deployment of smart assistive technology in the community care sector. It's great that we've got everyone on board today, and I just note that on your screen is where to register for the collaborative. If you haven't already done so, we'd encourage you to, so you'll get our regular updates on new webinars and new activities within the collaborative. Just by way of disclaiming, neither community resourcing are not promoting or endorsing any particular product, research entity or organisation. Rather, our webinars are served to inform viewers of examples of various smart assistive technologies in development and or in deployment. If you haven't been on our webinars before, here's a little ready rec now for you about using the panel on the side of the screen. That panel, you can add your questions. We ask that you add those questions early as you can in the course of the webinar. At previous webinars, we've been inundated with questions, so the earlier you post your question, the earlier we can moderate and discuss those questions at the end of the webinar. In interest of recording your participation in today's webinar, you will be put on mute, but you're able to let us know any questions or queries you have through this information pane. We're currently up to over 40 webinars produced from the Community Care Smart Assistive Technology, and today's webinar invites back a frequent flyer to our webinar project, Dr. Carrie Peterson. Dr. Peterson is well known to many in our collaboration for her work that she has done both in Australia, in America, and more currently in Denmark. So welcome, Dr. Carrie Peterson, to today's webinar. By way of introduction, Carrie is a renowned gerontologist who completed a PhD on assistive technologies for people with dementia, and particularly looking at quality of life outcomes as a result of technology interaction. Dr. Peterson also works for the World Health Organization in their regional office in Europe, and she currently resides in Copenhagen and works in the WHO Denmark Division of Information Evidence, Research and Innovation as an e-health and innovation consultant. It's my great pleasure to welcome you back, Carrie, and I look forward to your presentation today.
Thanks, Anne. Hi, and thanks to everyone for joining. I thought I would go ahead and start with giving a bit of an introduction about myself. So I grew up in a small village in South Dakota in the United States, and there we had a nursing home where both my parents and my grandparents worked. So I spent a lot of my youth at the nursing home, and this has had a tremendous impact on the rest of my life. I got my professional degree in applied gerontology, where I focused on dementia and counseling psychology. There I also worked for an Alzheimer's Association daycare center and private families during this time, and I absolutely knew that I wanted to have a career working with people with dementia. Shortly after finishing my degree, I moved to Denmark. And it was both exciting and challenging to be a foreigner in another country. Since I had recently finished my degree, I was quite eager to work in the area of dementia, but this was nearly impossible until I learned the language and the care system of Denmark. So in the meantime, I started to think about what the next wave in dementia care could be so that I could keep my skills relevant for the future. And this is how I decided to study for my PhD on quality of life and smart home technologies in dementia care. And again, this was a tremendously rewarding experience. Since then, I've been consulting to companies and startups, to national governments and local authorities, and to several research projects. So in addition to consulting on digital health for the World Health Organization Regional Office for Europe, I'm also involved in a research project with Central Queensland University, where we're using teleconferencing to provide education and support to rural carers of someone with dementia. So that's a little short introduction to who I am, and I'd like to start off by warming up into the topic now. First of all, what is innovation? Well, it generally refers to something new or to a change made to an existing product, idea, or field. Innovation is the application of ideas that are new and useful. It's not just products or technologies, it's also innovation to organizations and to management. Creativity is the ability to generate novel and useful ideas, and it's the seed of innovation. But unless it's applied and scaled, it's still just an idea. So this brings up, how do we innovate? Well, there's no one true path to innovation. A United States study on innovation of nearly 18 million scientific articles found that the most highly cited work tended to be mostly rooted within a traditional field with just a hint of insight from some unconventional place. So basically, use the information that's already available and add a twist to address the issue. Think about the question in a new way. Original combinations spark new insights, and I found this especially to be true while I was a gerontologist studying in an engineering department in Denmark. Talking about our different fields of work gave us both ideas on how to leverage technology for people with dementia, as well as how to use technology in a new way. And I want to take a little detour here and give you an example of innovative thinking that I came across a few years ago. This example comes from a university in Denmark during a competition where students had to use wireless communications to address a medical challenge. Now, this story didn't quite have usable results, but it's a good example of innovative thinking. One of the groups of students designed a way for a sensor on a diaper to send a signal when it was wet. And this was designed for hospital use or other similar care for older adults. And the students went a step further to be more helpful to the nurses and doctors, and they had a signal turn on a light above the bed. While any of us who have had experience in hospital or similar care where people have incontinence, you know that you do not advertise this information with a flashing light. But these young students, they had no experience with elder care or hospital care, and they were really addressing a relevant issue by using technology in a new way. And that's an important step in innovation. If they went on to further develop and market the product, they surely would have found out about privacy and dignity, as well as how to improve the signal and the design of their product. Well, currently, there's similar products on the market to detect enuresis and incontinence. And I'm still a bit surprised to learn that the alerts often use lights and sound, and they're even used as wearables. So the students who jumped into a new field of innovation weren't completely off mark. And we can maybe already start to get our own innovative ideas on how to further improve this product. And this example also brings up the question of why we innovate. So I'm sure most of you have heard that the number of people with dementia is increasing. And not only are there more people living and living longer with dementia than ever before, but more of them are wanting to live in their own homes and communities. Worldwide, there's nearly 50 million people currently living with dementia, and this is projected to increase to 75 million by 2030. In dementia care and support, the fix-it model just doesn't work. Dementia requires ongoing education, support, and care that also change in the levels of need. And it's not only for dementia care, but there's many health conditions that are best treated with longer-term care-based models, which adjust and continue as needed. Now, for many people who have experience with dementia or working in dementia care, they know that no two people with dementia are the same, have the same needs, and no one-size-fits-all solution will work for everyone. One needs to have a supply of creativity to adjust to the symptoms of dementia over a day and over longer periods of time. Sometimes what works one day won't work the next. And it's this that makes the people with dementia and those around them some really great innovators. So We can see that not only our health and social care systems, but communities and governments globally are preparing for an increase in the number of persons affected by dementia. This calls for innovative thinking to address large systemic issues that an increase in dementia brings. So to best support, we need to understand what matters most to them, what are the needs, and how does innovation address them. And in this talk, I'm going to focus on two main needs. How can people with dementia live more independently and engage in their communities? So let's start with another example of how to gain new insights. During one of my consulting jobs, I spoke with a colleague when she returned from a work trip in China, where she, among other things, used Lego with nursing home residents to resolve a bullying conflict. She had the residents design their ideal living environment with the Lego blocks and then relate that to management staff in practical strategies. She also held workshops using Lego Serious Play to promote health concepts to target groups, address nursing home management change, design new care facilities, develop business models, and to create shared visions. And while major corporations like Nokia and Microsoft are using Lego Serious Play as a strategic planning tool, various contributors to aged care are also joining in this new trend. It's based on the concept of hand knowledge, and this is the profound interconnection between the hand and the brain. Through Lego Serious Play, ideas and beliefs are expressed through language or other activities, which give insightful information on how people perceive and use the services and spaces intended for them. Other places, like the United Kingdom and in Asia, have used Lego Serious Play for hospital planning and getting patient narratives. And they found that using these toy bricks helped to create new discussions about how health providers and patients interact and where people need to be to get the most efficient and most appropriate care. Engaging people with the Lego blocks seems to open them up to new ways of thinking. And this next example is a new way of thinking about building communities where people with dementia can live more independently and engage in their surroundings. In Odense, Denmark, the hometown of fantasy author Hans Christian Andersen, they're building a City of Life district, which is the first of its kind in Denmark. The city wants to make an inclusive space for people with dementia, where they can easily participate in daily activities on equal footing with anyone else. This is also an innovative concept because around 75% of those living here won't have dementia. Here, the taboo of dementia will be removed, and there'll be a strong focus on counteracting isolation and loneliness. The district aims to create a life of independence for people living there, including the 200 to 300 people at various stages of their dementia. This means that the housing and community efforts need to make life attractive in its social, psychological, and physical environment. So as you can see here, they're planning for multiple types of housing, and these include family homes for members of the general community, flexible family homes for the families of those living in the aged care housing, age-friendly housing, which is like independent living, aged care housing, which is the supported living, transitional housing for those moving between independent living and aged care, and then housing for people with dementia to live in a shared space together. So some of the primary goals of this environment are to support family relationships, to promote happiness, to promote being part of society, and to have a strong focus on sustainable welfare. These mean collaboration across sectors and high potential to positively impact welfare growth and urban development in the area. This takes knowledge, project leadership, political coordination, and a desire from the locals and the community. The additional values, like the focus on environmental impact, sustainable energy use, the integration of welfare technology, and social values, are also attracting businesses and citizens. The City of Life aims to be the place that you travel to see the best in creating urban spaces and the way to live your life, all of your life. So as I mentioned, the neighborhood's going to be for everyone, children's families, young people, seniors, and animals. The City of Life is about respecting the individual and their own freedom, taking the view that we're all different and that we all have the right to live as we please. Everyone living there can walk freely around the district and enjoy the amenities, which includes shops, restaurants, hairdressers, theaters, concert halls, and so on. There will also be a central square, which is common in many Danish towns. And here's where the shops, the gardens, the walking paths, benches, and so on will all be centered. There's also one entrance and exit to the district with a concierge on duty, who will know when someone's leaving the district unattended and then how to manage such a situation. One central point, is that people will be enabled to meet with others on their own terms and manage as much as they can by themselves with support available if and when it would be needed. Here, the people are encouraged to live independently or with their families as long and as seamlessly as possible, and they can continue to live in the district as they require increasing levels of care. The City of Life will also have a knowledge development center to continue to explore and research what works and what doesn't work, because innovation is a process. So this Knowledge Development Center also provides both international and Danish students and professionals with the opportunity to volunteer and work in the district. So we can see that this is quite the undertaking, and maybe you already have some ideas of how this could or could not work where you are. And while an initiative like this takes years to come to fruition, the long-term benefits of creating a sustainable, smart, community-focused place to live continues to attract both national and international interest in businesses. Now, this next idea is one that's close to my heart, since I grew up spending a lot of my afternoons and weekends in the local nursing home. Many of my first friends were older adults, and this was where I learned a lot about the positive aspects of aging, as well as seeing that frailty, disability, and death are part of the full circle of life. I'm talking about the growing trend of having preschools inside nursing homes or intergenerational daycare centers. Here, everyone gets to observe each other, to make new bonds, and practice empathy. Being together also helps battle boredom and loneliness, and the happiness that comes from enjoying the company of others beats just about anything else. It definitely beats watching television and sitting alone. Programs like this are giving joy to life. Seeing an older person who notices a baby in the room and they light up immediately and smile in recognition, this is a good experience for everyone in the room to witness. The activities are ones that everyone can be involved in, whether it's reading and listening to stories, dancing and making music, helping to prepare lunch, or using their imagination in playtime. Everyone's allowed to be silly together. And while the benefits for older adults are often cited as lowered blood pressure, social engagement, and delay of cognitive decline, we can also think of programs like this as pre-training for the future generation of care workers. Now, next, I want to talk about a trend that's also transcending generations. It involves loud music, flashing lights, colorful clothing, and having a ton of fun. And I'm talking about raves. So in South Korea, the United Kingdom, Scotland, the Netherlands, New South Wales, and many other places, aging adults gather for daytime discos where they can dance, meet others, and have an alternative activity to visiting senior centers or staying at home during the day. These Kolotex began to spring up in the late 1990s as a no-alcohol dancing club for teens, but they soon started to attract the elderly as their main customers. In one South Korea area, up to 2,000 people visit the discos per day on the weekends. In China, daytime tea and karaoke is an up-and-coming popular activity among aging adults. In Glasgow, one daytime disco organizer, who's a former NHS occupational therapist, sees a gap in the market for fun activities for older adults. And in Sydney, the New South Wales government has supported the Move and Groove program, which researches silent discos for people with dementia. Here they use individual wireless headphones and can have personalized music while they dance together. In the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, event organizers and club promoters have started to get on board. They're hosting and organizing disco and rave events for the 60-plus crowd, and mainstream DJs are finding they're some of the funnest and most rewarding gigs that they have. These dancing activities help to reinforce identity and socialization, as well as provide physical activity. Some places have coupled additional services in the buildings where the discos are, such as massage therapy and acupuncture, and they find that people use these both before and after dancing to take care of their joints and muscles. Now, another innovative idea that's gaining noticeable traction in the United States and the United Kingdom is in dementia-friendly vacations. These can be cruises, excursions, dementia-friendly hotels and resorts, spas, and so on. Dementia Adventure, which is based in the United Kingdom but has an international presence, they provide training to expand the awareness, resources, and availability of nature-based, positive risk-taking activities. They're a specialist organization that provide holidays for people with dementia and their families and carers. People with dementia can feel that holidays, travel, and outdoor activity are things that are no longer available to them. And many times families are unable to take the person with dementia on family holiday especially if they know it'll be disorienting, confusing, or too active. But with this fantastic growing trend in dementia-friendly tourism, families are supported in taking holidays together, and a whole new dementia-positive market is emerging. This new market includes holiday services such as on-demand nurses, daycares, tour guides, planning specialized packages, or assisting with transportation and accommodation, all while being dementia positive. One study concluded that integrating dementia into a destination development strategy gives communities and organizations a competitive edge. Success, the study claims, lies in the development of dementia-friendly tourism networks. For example, a dementia-friendly hotel may recommend restaurants and cafes, and these cafes and restaurants may recommend scenic attractions or on-call care or activities, and so on. In turn, this further creates training and education opportunities in the dementia-friendly tourism locations, where more businesses, organizations, and individuals can see an economic and social reason to be dementia-friendly. So before I moved to Denmark, I worked with one woman who had the familial type of early onset Alzheimer's disease. She'd been very active all her life and was still so in her mid-50s. We carried out as many of her regular activities as possible, including going to her local gym and walking several miles a day. She enjoyed meeting and talking with other people on the outdoor trails and in the locker rooms, and she often told them that she has Alzheimer's disease and really likes that she can come to this gym where things are familiar for her. She also volunteered in a gift shop at a shopping mall a few hours per week. This is something she started when she began reducing her hours at work after her diagnosis. The store was happy to have her as long as she had a helper with. So she would assist customers with gift ideas, comment on the various items, and help bag purchases at the counter. Again, she was very open and often told customers about her Alzheimer's disease while she was helping them. And to me, she really struck me as a great example of reducing stigma around Alzheimer's disease, and she was a really great salesperson. She genuinely complimented both the businesses and was able to sell the lovely things sold in the gift shop. Now, Dementia Western Australia is making efforts to match people with dementia with volunteer opportunities. This supports a person with the opportunity to use their talents and abilities to contribute in a meaningful way for them. It's particularly popular with people who've recently retired and those living with young onset dementia. They explore a person's strengths and interests and then match these with appropriate volunteer positions, and this ensures a person-centered approach. Another important aspect of the program was to pair the person with a support worker from Dementia Australia. And their role is to support the person to volunteer and easing their integration into the organization. Having a support worker involved was often seen as a bonus for the organizations because they got 2 volunteers for the price of 1, and it lessened concerns about the perceived risks for everyone involved. Now in Tokyo, the Restaurant of Order Mistakes opened for a trial period of 3 days, and it only hired wait staff for people with dementia. The premise was that the staff might get your order wrong, but if you know that going in from the start, you won't dwell on it too much, and it might even change your perception about people with dementia. It also showed that people with dementia can be functioning members of society, and that society can adjust to the symptoms of dementia as well. In the United States, one senior living facility and animal shelter teamed up for a program that pairs animal-loving residents of the memory care facility with shelter kittens. The health services director at this memory care came up with the idea because she's a volunteer foster mom at the animal shelter, and she finds this to be a meaningful task that she really enjoys. And recognizing the happiness that caring for the cats brings her, she realized that many of the memory care residents may also enjoy bottle feeding, socializing, and cuddling newborn kittens. She says that there's skills, emotions, and needs that don't just go away once a person has a dementia diagnosis. The desire to give and receive love still remains. And these kittens have given them the opportunity to nurture this human condition that lies in each and every one of us. Now, another example comes from a few years ago when I was working at an activity house for people with early onset dementia. This house was located in a small forest where we would meet every morning and spend our day. Everyone participated in setting the table and preparing meals and taking care of the house and garden. A favorite part of our day was taking long walks in the woods where we would take carrots or apples with to feed some of the farm horses. One of the things that impressed me about this particular service is that everyone's expected to pitch in and help, just like in any household. This was their forest house, and they took pride in painting the windowsills, bedding the plants, and fixing up the greenhouse. Not only were they getting social stimulation and lots of fresh air and exposure to plants and animals, but they were also supported in carrying out regular home life activities. One of the other things that helped make this such a great experience was that I was coming in as a foreigner. So I could speak Danish, but I didn't know all the words for the gardening tools or the plant names. So I could ask them about these things or the history of the area or how do you use this tool or this herb. And these were things that they could happily explain to me. And it also gave them the confidence to contribute in discussions. Another example from Denmark is in Aarhus, where there's an open air museum called the Old Town. Here, the buildings are preserved in their historical state, both inside and out. And in particular, the 1950s house has been popular with people with dementia. There's a smell of newly varnished floors, the sound of the piano, and the feel of a newly starched apron. This greets the visitors and brings the senses into play as soon as they enter. The rooms are decorated as a nice middle-class home from the mid-1950s. And this is the time when most of the museum's visitors with dementia were young and starting their own families. The decor itself opens many doors for memories. All the furniture and objects are original, and they're all cleaned with soft soap, rubbing alcohol, and vinegar, which was used in the 1950s. So the smell is also authentic. It started with special tour group arrangements to visit the house and to have coffee or reminiscence activities. But this quickly turned into the museum catering to people with dementia and attracting international attention on their guided reminiscence activities. Norway, Sweden, and Hungary have already started to adopt the idea, and the program has become so popular in Denmark that regular museum visitors can only visit the house on weekends, as it's fully booked on weekdays for reminiscence activities. In summer 2018, the Aros Art Museum in Denmark held 4 art courses over 7 weeks. And these were specifically designed for people with dementia and their carers. It was a pilot step in making the museum dementia friendly. Now, I've also attended an event at a National Museum for Art in Copenhagen, where they had a full day special program on art and the brain. This was in collaboration with the Alzheimer's Association, the National Brain Health Organization, and 7 patient and carer organizations. While some of the program had a focus on how different brain states influence art and how art influences different reactions in the brain, there were several parts of the program that focused on dementia and how this is both represented in art and the therapeutic benefits of art. The event was really well received and will likely to be held again. And this also got me thinking that, especially for people who were historians, artists, art teachers, volunteering in a museum could be a great way for them to continue to participate in their profession and in their community. And this could be applied to a whole range of professions and hobbies. Volunteering or working in tourist bureaus, historical centers, vintage shops, hobby stores, and so on. So now that you've heard a few innovative ideas to support community engagement, let's look at some of the innovative ways that people are living more independently. So you may have heard of Dutch, United Kingdom, United States, and French nursing homes and retirement communities that provide free rent to university students in exchange for 30 hours a month of their time volunteering. This provides new housing opportunities for students, where many university towns are facing a shortage in available housing. And it also provides an additional attraction for the long-term housing properties to continue to draw in customers. Can also extend beyond nursing homes and retirement communities to other types of independent and assisted living arrangements. There's a growing trend of retirement communities forging ties with nearby universities, so older adults can audit courses, attend performances, serve as museum docents, and use campus hospitals, libraries, and fitness facilities. They're finding that both young and old benefit from this type of arrangement. But shared housing is not only about young college students living with older adults. There's also examples of middle-aged people, such as someone going through a divorce, who seeks out an older and wiser roommate to share housing expenses. I've also come across examples of several middle-aged women buying a house together that they plan to thrive and age together in, very much like the Golden Girls. And more older singles are choosing to live in shared housing arrangements together. These are often for more practical reasons, like sharing expenses and looking for companionship, someone to ask, how was your day, and to share your meals with. We can also see that these types of living arrangements form bonds in smaller communities, to have someone to rely on if and when health problems should arise. And this is a new trend of share giving and minimizing the risks of dependency. I've seen cluster living trends at several long-term care homes in Denmark, where the housing units are structured like regular everyday houses. Everyone has their own bedroom and maybe even their own bathroom, and then they share the living and dining rooms and the outdoor spaces. They help to prepare meals with the nursing staff dedicated to their home. They eat together, they watch movies or listen to music together. And these types of arrangements are more like the home life that people are used to. And it's great to see more care institutions getting on board with this trend of uninstitutionalized living. Now, as these trends continue, city planners and housing developers will likely get on board designing and building such shared houses and apartments that are to be lived in by groups of aging adults. And when housing developments are twinned with care services, they can create service-supported neighborhoods. This also brings about opportunities to support independent living through smart home environments. So independent living should be seen as a dynamic process. It's never static. A person's physical, emotional, social, and environmental needs are continually changing and evolving. Think of your life 1 year ago and the physical, emotional, and social needs you had then. Now, I bet that for many of you, these have changed over the course of a year. So in this way, we can understand how independent living is an idea or a state of mind and involves a thought process. You apply this thought process to your lifestyle, and this is still true for people with dementia. So here I'm talking about a suitable living arrangement that allows an individual to exercise as much independence and autonomous decision-making as possible. So independent living is a living environment that enables independence. And we want people with dementia to be better supported to exercise their ability to remain independent and to have choice and control over their lives. Some of the more well-known and low-tech examples of how to support independent living include making changes to the home environment, creating reassuring routines, using simple language and visual cues. And these are great examples of innovating or thinking in a new way about what you already have. And then there's also assistive technology, like smart home technologies in dementia care, which are designed to help people remain independent, but also give relatives the reassurance that they'll be alerted if their loved ones are in any sort of harm. So here, devices are connected and allow others to monitor a person's environment, health, and well-being in real time. These devices can alert carers and emergency health services if they detect any potential problems, such as a fall or a fire. While technologies to support independent living often focus on the safety and security of the individual, they can also have benefits that not only address the home environment, but support autonomy and decision-making. So in my PhD project, we used a range of sensors to create a smart home environment for people with dementia. We used smoke detectors, cooker monitors, door and window sensors, and so on. These range of technologies allowed the carers to use the system to check in on their loved one and to get an idea of how the day is going without needing to call or stop by as frequently. Some of the additional benefits were that the carers were able to sleep better and have more peace of mind, knowing that they'd be alerted if a dangerous or emergency situation arose. The system allowed the person with dementia to have more autonomy in deciding the timing and the pace of the activities throughout their day. It supported them in cooking their own meals or going out into their community and other daily activities that otherwise could be unsafe for them to do on their own. A further example of innovation in the project is the way that the people with dementia used the technology. So the project included a touchscreen computer, which helped to maintain the structure of the day by showing which activities were coming up, giving the date and time, and also had an emergency contact button. So one woman during the course of the study lost her ability to use the house telephone and started using the emergency contact button to call her son. At first, this was distressing to him because he was getting emergency notifications all day, but we all soon learned that this was now her new and innovative way of contacting him. And you can see here from the quote that one person could noticeably tell that their mother was more self-confident and less dependent, which provided benefits for both of them at home and at work. We also found that the regional care providers benefited from the telecare. They had increased efficiency, improved billing, increased management capacity, more convenience, and resource savings. The technology is not intended to replace human care, but it's designed to work alongside existing care services. Together, these can support a higher quality of care and give a person with dementia more control over their own well-being. Technology and hands-on care together are helping to shape this new era of independent living through access to services and new methods to provide care. I would also expect to see some kind of online health marketplace emerge in the coming years. Similar to how people already use Amazon to make purchases, a similar platform could make it easy for older adults and carers to find, customize, and order their community-based services, such as home care, medical transport, and meals. They can also give ratings on services and providers, which creates a healthy competition in the marketplace as well. So now I'd like to close with one more example of how technology and innovation can support engagement with one's own community. So part of many lifestyles is community engagement. And part of that is supporting their feelings of ownership or belonging to a community and their feelings of attachment to place. An example comes to mind from a European research project that used GPS tracking. So here you can see a man from the project out walking his neighbor's dogs. And he used to do this regularly while his neighbors were at work. But he got lost once after his dementia diagnosis and became afraid to go out of the house alone. But now with the GPS, he gained independence by being able to leave the house. He takes walks out in nature, which contributes to his quality of life. He gets exercise, which helps to control his diabetes. He gets to walk the dogs, which gives him contact with animals and a form of socialization. And he helps out his neighbors, so he's contributing to his own community. Now, this is a small scale and individual example of how innovation supported his community engagement. And in the project, we offered GPS devices to the individuals with mild to moderate dementia. And they reported that they felt they had more independence because they could resume taking walks again, go to the store or social events alone, and they felt safer because they knew they could be located and helped if they would be confused or get lost. What was surprising was how the community care providers and family carers were using the GPS system. So the community care providers would check in on the person's location before they would drive out to make their visit. And this was especially used when the care providers would have to drive considerable distances to visit their patients. They often had full schedules, so it was beneficial for them to make sure that the person was at home. And it also allowed the person with dementia to have the autonomy to carry out their own daily activities as it suited them, rather than having to plan their day around when to expect visitors. Family carers, especially those who were working outside of the home, they could check in on their person's location throughout the day and see if they were at the memory cafe, having coffee at a neighbor's house, or out for a walk. They would also use the GPS to see if the person was at home or not if no one answered the phone. And they felt better having a general idea of their person's location and activities throughout the day. This allowed them to focus on their work and to be more productive when they were at the office. So to summarize some of the innovative uses in this example, we had intended that the GPS service would be used to locate someone if they became lost, but found that it had other uses and benefits we hadn't even thought of or planned to research. These are great examples of how people with dementia and their carers are good at innovating for their own situation. Now, a next step of the innovation onto this type of GPS service could be geofencing. This uses GPS technology, and the geofencing can alert carers if the person with dementia leaves the boundaries put in place. These GPS trackers come in the form of bracelets or other types of wearable sensors, and the devices allow a person to go out into their community, and then carers can receive a message on their phone if they leave the geofence perimeter. Now, as I mentioned, innovation is not just about a new product or idea. It can also be about a new way to organize, manage, and do things. And here I'd like to talk about going beyond dementia-friendly as an innovative concept. So what's good for dementia is good for all people in society. It's known that a dementia-friendly society is designed for all to use. In some cities here in Denmark, they're educating neighborhoods on being dementia aware, particularly to help look out for neighbors who live alone and may have dementia. These types of caring communities encourage people to look out for and to support one another. And it's also spurring new models of care, much like share giving. Taking this a step further from the individual level, Businesses and governments can also get on board or even lead the way towards making the central buildings and services in the community accessible and enjoyable for all. A good way to start doing this is by looking at the places where aging adults and people with dementia already frequent and where you want them to frequent. Consider how places and activities could be made more dementia inclusive, which is one step further from being dementia friendly, so that people with dementia can have a real quality of life and dignity. A caring community is a place or culture where people with dementia and their carers are empowered, supported, and included. This means understanding their rights and recognizing their potential. It's important to involve people with dementia in community redesign and even allocating jobs or volunteer activities to those who want to contribute through working to make their community more inclusive. Leverage this potential and these sources of meaningful, innovative thinking. I would not be surprised if in creating and marketing these communities for all and these services for all, if other groups are also attracted, such as people with autism, people who've had a stroke or late life brain damage, as well as the general public. A caring community goes beyond dementia or any other specific health condition and encourages the values of personhood, that we're all different and that we all have the right to live as we are, and it encourages the feeling of belonging in the communities that we choose to live in. If these places are truly designed for all to use, friendly and accommodating, the rest of society will start to take notice and also want to participate. So in dementia support, we would benefit from treating innovation like other business disciplines. It's a set of tools that are designed to accomplish specific objectives. Just as we don't rely on a single marketing tactic or a single source of financing for the entire life of an organization, we need to build up a portfolio of innovation strategies to address dementia. It's best to start innovation by choosing a clear focus. Focus on the question, not on the solution or the idea. Can you take what you already have and improve it? Can you seek out customer feedback and turn it into an improved product or service? It also helps to leverage existing knowledge and practice, including from multiple disciplines, and then use that knowledge to address the issue in a new way. At the least, an innovative idea should serve a purpose, whether it's through technology or not. It may meet a need that isn't being met by other methods, it may offer a new way of providing care, or nearly any other purpose you could imagine. The possibilities really are endless, but the real benefit of using technology or any other innovation in dementia care is that it has meaning and that it's useful. Models of innovation are going to change with needs, with groups, with results, and over time. But luckily, there are multiple ways to innovate. So with this, I conclude my presentation and thank my hosts and now open it up for questions.
Thank you very much, Carrie, for a great presentation. You've shown us from low tech to high tech and some great examples of where just great community-based innovation is occurring. I've got a number of questions from the audience.
Okay.
In terms of trust, Leanne asks, how do you get clients to trust the technology?
I think part of that depends on which technology you're using. So for example, in my PhD project where we use the smart home technologies, a lot of the people were hesitant at first, but that was mostly a fear that they were going to break the technology or that they wouldn't know how to use it properly. So it was great in this project that we had everything work almost without them needing to take any action. So the sensors were automatic, the notifications were automatic, and this kind of helped encourage them that the system is functioning fine and it can work, that you're not going to break it. Another helpful thing was in the training to really explain how something works and why we're doing it. And it also allowed the person the freedom to test and touch and push buttons and try the technology, knowing that someone was right there to fix it if anything would go wrong. So this kind of gave them the confidence to trust the technology, that it was going to work. And you also have the other things like privacy and security issues. And while a lot of governments are starting to address those specifically with GPS tracking, here in Denmark, they find that it's always best just to talk directly to the person, to show them respect and treat them like any other individual, explain the service and ask if they would like to participate. And if they decline, you have to respect that as well.
Carrie, there's a major debate in our country at the moment around video surveillance, and particularly video surveillance as it's applied in residential aged care, but also could be applied in home-based and community settings. Do you have any comments about the appropriateness of using that at a wide scale, or any examples of where research has been undertaken about its application in aged care?
So I do recall coming across this. I don't have a lot of experience with video monitoring, but of course touched on it during the PhD and also afterwards. So I know that there's some providers who were really working hard to look at just the outline of a body. So you don't have the facial recognition, you can't see any details of what's actually happening, but the system can recognize the shape of the person, and therefore they can recognize if they fall or if they're laying on the floor, if there's an emergency situation. So that was why that was used. And for video surveillance, for that purpose, I found that most of the people with dementia and the carers that I talked with weren't so concerned about using the videos for that purpose. As long as they could see it didn't recognize your face and it wasn't filming them on the toilet or doing various activities in the bathroom or bedroom, they were fine with that. The video surveillance in the hallways or, bathrooms are a high-risk place for falls. So in a residential care facility, this might be a place where they would like to use that. And I would suggest these types of video surveillance where you don't recognize the face and the video can't be, used for other purposes.
I guess the conditions in which they're being used or are being demonstrated at the moment are quite controversial, in that families have used them to track the safety and security of a person, particularly when staff have acted inappropriately.
This way, yes.
So that's sort of quite a different take on it. And I guess it's ignited a bit of a debate about the ethics and morals around using technology more broadly. And I think we'd all agree that we need more discussion and more debate and opportunities to determine or to outline what is seen as acceptable and not acceptable. And I guess it's the issue that technology can play in safety and security for older people. I've got one last question, Carrie, in respect to the time we have for today's webinar. It comes from Jace, and Jace is asking, could you detail some international experiences that you know of how these technologies are actually funded in community care?
That is a good question. The funding models can be a bit trickier. So, for example, one of the things that I had mentioned about increasing dementia-friendly tourism and local networks for dementia-friendly tourism, I thought that this is one good example. I don't know if this quite addresses the question, but this is the first thing that comes to mind. I thought that this was one pretty good example because it encourages the community and the businesses and the individuals to get on board because they can start to see a financial benefit for it. So otherwise, in general, it's a little difficult to go out to a community and convince them to become dementia friendly when maybe they don't have the money for the training for it, or maybe they don't see a real benefit for it in their particular organization. But if you start to create these caring communities and these, dementia friendly networks, more people are getting on board and they start to see not only an economic but a societal benefit for doing it. And hopefully that will kind of spur people not to do it out of the goodness of their hearts, but spur them to do it because they start to see the benefits, and then the economic benefits come as a result of that. I think it's going to take many years for this to be something that's so widely accepted and that so many companies will put up their own financial means to go ahead and get on board. But I really hope to see this happen, and we're starting to see some change in these small pocket communities.
Thank you, Carrie, for a great presentation. I thank you for your time. I know that the time difference has been a bit of a challenge, and thank you again for such a fabulous presentation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Just by closing today's session, I just wanted to note that we will be hosting a site visit at the ITAC annual conference. The site visit is of the Tonsley Innovation Precinct in South Australia, and the details to register for that are on the site. Many of our listeners would know that the Tonsley Innovation Precinct is really considering the role that technology will play in the lives of older people and people with a disability, and is specialising in that, and has recently opened a living lab for aged care and is the centre for the Global Centre for Modern Ageing. If you would like to attend that, you might consider also attending the two-day ITAC conference, which is being held at the Adelaide Convention Centre. Thanks everyone for attending today's webinar. Just a reminder to register if you haven't already at the Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative, and the details are on your site there. Thanks for your attendance today. Get in contact with any of our team at the Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Project, and the team's contact is also on your screen now. Thank you, Carrie, for your involvement in today's webinar, and we look forward to hopefully having you back in Australia one day soon.
Yes, me too. Thanks.